When I tested that solution, I wondered why nobody really talks about this. And that's how, after the story I explained at the beginning, I was able in a couple of months to make enough money to get back on track. But that's how it works. Nothing magic, it's just good old networking. But why does it work? Well, it works because basically you are referring someone to people you know. And that comes with many pros and a few cons. So let's talk about it now. First, let's start with the pros. And the first pro is once you get into BNI, and I will talk about the conditions later, but once you get into BNI, if you're a web designer, you can get away with $0 in external marketing and sales. Because basically for me, all I did was BNI and I didn't have to spend money on ads. I did not have to do cold calling. Basically, the clients came to me either through referral or just the guests coming to each meeting every week. The next pro is that the return on investment can really be impressive. Because basically all you need to do is to give 2 hours of your time and some other conditions, which we'll talk about later. And then you just get basically business coming your way. While everybody else is struggling online, trying to, put ad after ad and try to get customers the hard way or cold calling. And all you have to do is go to a meeting, meet nice people, have like a breakfast, and you just get business coming your way. Next, it gives you unlimited connections. Because think about it, maybe you live in the same place and that's fine, but maybe you want to meet other people. So getting into this group, you're going to sit down with a lawyer, with a surgeon, maybe some people you would never have met. And it goes both ways, professional and personal. Give you an example. The plumber in my group, because I knew him, if I had an emergency, I could get around and get him to come quicker, or one of his staff because he had a big plumbing company. And also, I knew that because we need to trust each other in the group, he would not try to cross me over, And that really gave me peace of mind. And knowing all those people in different industry really gave me peace of mind. Another example I can give you is once someone from the group was stuck in another city and they needed a way to come back, but they didn't have their car. So they asked, we had a WhatsApp group, they asked, hey, is anyone going from that city to that city? Because I have a situation here. And like 5 minutes later, someone said, hey, no problem. I can pick you up at that point and bring you back home, basically. And this is the power of a network. And if like me, you've moved to a place where you don't know anyone, it's even better because you get that network, but you can also make friends. I actually made friends in that group over 6 years. There were so many members and I've made some lifetime connections. The next pro is that you can sell higher ticket services. Let me explain. Where I used to live, like the average website was being sold, and I'm talking for very small businesses. It would start at 1,200 or 1,500 euros. But within BNI, I was able to sell higher ticket services. And bear in mind, I was not trying to sell the same services my competitors did. I used to do really custom websites, so it was higher end, but it was easier to sell. Why? Because of the next pro. Once you get into a network like BNI, and there are many networks, but I tried a couple of others and they were not as successful. That's why I stick to BNI. When you get to a network like BNI, basically what you get access to, because members can ask in each meeting, hey, I would like to be introduced to that person from that company. Does anyone here knows that person, or can you ask your own network? And a lot of the time, it's just a matter of minutes, hours, sometimes days, you get a contact. And now you get access to someone you would never, ever have access to, like the CEO of a company where they would need your services, but if you try to cold call, you're never gonna get an answer. But now suddenly you get an introduction from someone who has lunch with them every week, or go playing golf with them, or tennis, or whatever. And the beauty of it is that it doesn't just even stop at your local environment. There's actually a global phone book, contact book. So for example, let's say you're gonna go to Greece for 1 month, and while you're there, you'd like to make some meaningful connections. Well, you can go visit chapters there. And before you even go, you can plan a trip, contact people and say, hey, you contact someone from Athens, for example, one of the chapters, and say, oh, I would like to be introduced to the CEO of that company. Does any of your members know? And they will help you. And on the other hand, if someone from Greece or any other country came to your country, you might be asked, oh, do you know the CEO of that company? Because we have a member from Greece, they want to meet that person. So, it goes both ways. And that brings me to my next pro. It's way, way, way easier to sell to someone you've been referred to by someone they trust. Because what I found out is that most of the time, people would not discuss the price with me. They would just discuss, hey, can you do this? And I want to be sure that the level of quality is going to match what I'm going to pay for. Basically, the trust factor is way higher, which means that selling is way easier. But on the other hand, you need to deliver. If you don't deliver, anybody in the group will know. They will stop referring you to their acquaintances and customers and so on. So this is a kind of virtuous circle where you've been referred to, but because you want to keep on getting referrals, you really need to deliver, which means you're going to level up your skills. That's another pro. And talking about leveling up your skills, you're going to get way better at speaking publicly. Now, whether you fear speaking publicly or you're good at speaking publicly, you're going to get better. I literally saw people that were like shaking, speaking in front of 20 of us that they would see every week, even when there was no guest around. Those people were like really anxious and shaking. I saw them going from that point to actually being able to do a full-blown presentation, being engaging in like less than a year. It really works because it's a simple exercise. Every week you have 30 seconds to pitch your services. And they give you a method. They train you and they show you how to do it. They reward you also. There are little games to help you, being incentivized to make better presentations. And at the end of the day, you're going to level up, and that's going to help you in your business, but that's also going to help you in life because you're going to see other people struggling, getting better. They're going to help you. And at the end of the day, repetition is the mother of skills. So doing that every week, see your progress after just 1 year. You'd be surprised. And I want to give you one bonus pro. When you start as a freelance web designer and you join BNI, guess what? In the group, there may be a graphic designer, there may be a video editor, there may be a video producer. So now you can set yourself up as a web design studio and you can just outsource to those people you see every week and which have to maintain a high level of service if they want to keep on being trusted. And the great thing with that is that when you're going to go to a meeting with client, they're going to see you and your team. And that without having to have employees and all the hassle that come with it. And that can really help you level up. Now let's talk about the cons. And the first con is that you have to wake up early. And if you're a night owl like I was, that must have been the hardest thing. But trust me, the return on investment helped me to motivate me. So after a little while, it was just mechanical. It was very easy. But I'm not gonna lie, at the beginning, the first couple of months, oh my God. But don't let that stop you, because if I did, I don't know where I would be now. Luckily, I pushed through, and you can too. Now, the next con is that it can get pretty repetitive. Bear in mind, I did that for a few years. Every week, I would go 6 a.m., 6:30 a.m. for the same meeting. Okay, the first few ones, there's a bit of variety, but after a few weeks, months, it's the same thing, just a different spin sometimes. And that's the hardest part. But what motivated me, I said, hey, I kept pushing through because I said, this is like my sales and marketing strategy all in one. All I need to do is show up once per week and clients are going to come my way. And if you think about it this way, you're going to stop complaining and see it as just what you need to do for your business to level up. Now, the next con is that like in any human society, sometimes you can get bad apples coming into your chapter. They can destroy a group. So you really need to watch out for the people who are coming and you need to be active in the group. We need to get some influence because I saw some people come and go. And at the end, I remember I could spot some of the people that came into the group. I could sense, those people, they're not gonna last like 2-3 months tops, Whereas I remember when I left, there was only one person that had been there before me. That was my friend. All the other members had left the group and new members came in. So I was very consistent, and my friend too. And then there were a few of the other members that had been there for a few years. But like I said, I saw some people come and go. So you need to realize that, hey, BNI is not perfect. It's just a reflection of society. But don't let that deter you. Don't let that make you think, oh, I'm just going to leave because there are some bad people. There are some bad people everywhere. But that being said, I saw some groups have a positive spin, some groups have a negative spin. For example, there was a chapter, a BNI chapter, very close to our chapter, and they were always like looking at us like envious, but I could feel, there were some bad vibes in that group. So sometimes there were some intergroups meetups. I never wanted to go in that group because I just didn't really feel it. And I was proven right. One of those members, which I used to meet, I was in a co-working space, so I used to meet that person all the time, have lunch with that person. He had a competing agency, but I was in a mindset like, hey, the market is big enough and the city is big enough, and let's collaborate, let's work together. There are some skills you have, some services we can outsource to you and vice versa. And I used to have lunch with him and just laugh, crack jokes and all of that. Only to find out that he stole some clients from me. I mean, he snatched the clients before they could even get to me. And I learned that the hard way. But the rest of the people in that chapter were a bit like him. So, cut a long story short, their group went down to like 10 members, 9, 8, and just disappeared. So if you find a bad group, just find another one or create one. You can always go to BNI and say, hey, I want to pioneer in that part of the city. I would love to start a BNI chapter. And trust me, BNI will be happy. They will try to help you. And if you can get enough members to come in, then, the chapter is launched, which is what happened to the chapter I was in. When I joined, there was 7 of us. And like I said, at the peak, you reach like 42 to 44. Don't really remember. Now, another con is that BNI is very local. Initially supposed to work where you live. But now the good news is that since the war stopped for a couple of years, if you know what I'm talking about, they decided to start opening to online groups. It doesn't happen everywhere, but you can check if you can find an online group. I know they started one where I used to live. And finally, one of the cons is that it's not free. And don't click off, and that's the reason why I'm just talking about it now. If I talked about this earlier in the video, most people would just click off at that point. But hear me out. It's not about really what you pay for a service, it's what you get out of it. I share my personal story, but I also saw many people in the group that made their money back really fast. Now, I'm not gonna lie, it depends on how involved you are, how skilled you are, and if you're just a ethical worker, ethical professional. But if you are, you can definitely make a comeback super fast. I made a comeback in like 3 to 4 weeks. I told you what was left in my bank account. I mean, that was amazing. So how much does it cost? Now, before I share the price, and the price vary per region, but I'm just gonna break it down. But the first thing is, if you have no money, you can go to 2 meetings per chapter for almost free. Just the price of the breakfast. I think where I used to live, it was like 10 euros, like, I don't know, $12 or something. But basically that's all you have to pay. And you can go twice to each chapter. So some cities have like 10 chapters, 20, 30, depends where you live. So basically you could tour all the BNI chapters for like 1 year and just pay like $10 per meeting, and you could still start making some business. Now bear in mind, it would be harder to get invited if you have a competing service. So if there's already a web designer, that might be a little more difficult. But the tip is just contact the regional manager for BNI and ask, hey, in which groups is there no web designer? I'd like to go to those groups. And that's going to be easy peasy. Now, how much did it cost? So the price have evolved with inflation, but from what I remember, basically I paid about 1,000 euros per year. Bear in mind, I made that money back in, I doubled that money in less than 3 weeks. But it was about 1,000 euros more or less to get in. It might be way cheaper where you live because I think they have a really regional pricing policy, but I'm not really sure. But you can easily check it out. Go on the website. And then the next thing is that, and that may be different for the online, but for the in-person meetings, then they're going to ask you also to pay per meeting. For us, it was about 10 euros, like I said, per meeting. So same price for guests. But basically there were like 4 meetings in a month, most of the months. So it would be like 40 euros or 45 or $50 per month, but you get a breakfast. So it's not just paying for the conference room, but you also get a breakfast, which is good because when the meetup is done, you can start networking with people. You have guests that are there, and it's always better with a coffee and some nice pastries. So yes, it's not free, but the return on investment is impressive. And if you have no money or very little money, what you can do is just reach out on the website to a regional manager and say, like I said, hey, I would like to be invited to a chapter where there is no web designer. And then you pay it $10. You can go twice per chapter. And once you get a client and sell a website, then you can pay for the membership. You can always leave, if the worst comes to the worst, maybe you've lost a little bit of money, but what happens if you don't go there? Do you want to keep on struggling? I'm very passionate about the topic and I want to help people to make a living out of their digital skills. So I see you in the next one. And in the meantime, take care and stay safe. Okay, it's in the box. Yeah.